Hello, everyone. If you're just tuning in, this is Activate Understanding. I am Dr. Loretta Halstead, and I am continuing a conversation with Judah Hatcher. And we're just going to pick it up here again and speak about the question that we closed with was what is it? What do you do? And I want you to bring in your own experience and training professionally, as you were speaking about in mortuary science, as well as your own personal experience that you have had and are yet walking through with grief and loss. What do you do when your loved one is in a better place and you're in a worse place?
Wow, that's a good question. Um, Personally, I understand that that's a process that is never ending. I also know that what helps me in knowing that my loved one is in a better place and I'm in the worst one uh, is being reminded and focused on um, or trying to stay focused on what I still want out in life. What are my goals? What's my definite chief aim? And what are the things that I need to do to get there? Who am I? Understanding who am I? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is my reasoning for doing what I've been doing the same? Um, uh, the pain, the loss. Again, we established earlier, like if I burn my finger, uh, that initial ouch, like my body is saying, hey, something's going on. You need to remove your hand. I sprained my ankle. Um, it's like, stop doing that. Don't walk on this. You need to heal. You need to adjust. You need to put some type of support system around it. And so the same thing in the physical, um, whether in the physical support system is a brace, a cast. What is your support system when dealing with your emotional and your emotional trauma and grief? What is your support system? What ace bandage are you putting around? What cast? Um, and hopefully, um, well, I would encourage everyone to find that support system, that ace bandage, that cast, whether it be through counseling, whether it be through talking to your mentors. Um, and then when we go through physical pain, um, in most cases, that limb has to rest. Um, are we taking the time to rest? Are we taking time to heal? Because through the period of rest comes healing. Um, and so that's what I would encourage people to do. And that's what I've been trying to do. Take time to rest, take time to heal, knowing that in my resting, there's healing. Um, Surrounding myself with support systems, uh, following the doctor's advice, the doctor being Holy Spirit, the doctor being in the natural, there's a physical doctor. In the natural, there's doctors, counselors, um, but then there's also uh, God, listening to the voice of the Holy Spirit that's leading and guiding us. And that's how I've been able to take steps in moving forward and um, moving through uh, the worst place, my worst place, while my loved one is in a better place.
What happens when okay, so there's pain and there's suffering.
Mm.
So let's just say so that we can find ourselves on the same page. Let's say that pain is an affliction of the body. and say that suffering is perhaps an affliction of the soul.
Wow.
So in your in your suffering, or in the suffering which is a part of the experience of the human being, and there is no pill per se that we can take for it, um, and we say things sometimes, the words that we use, not maliciously, because we're both from the school of thought that we want to just make sure that that you understand that for the most part people are not being malicious when they say things.
Absolutely.
And you say things on one side of the experience of loss and grief that you would never say again once you walk through that gate, that you would never say again to another person. The things that we've both probably typically heard said, like the one that you raised before, about they're in a better place, or God needed another angel, or God needed another flower, or we should cry when we're born and celebrate when we die. And what are some of the other ones that we say?
That's
Maybe
main
God thought
ones.
that something else was going to that something bad was going to happen, therefore
Mhm.
you have this loss. And the many other things that we say that now makes my hair go straight and make me grow a beard and a
The Lord
mustache.
works in mysterious ways.
Right, when I hear people say them. um, what is it, how is the best way, and you can draw on, if you would, some of your training and experience in mortuary science and the many people that you undoubtedly came in contact with. What are some of the things that you have found to be helpful in a real way, not so much just in general platitudes or comments or things that we say because they sound good but feel awful?
Mhm.
What are some of the things that you have learned in the absence, the physical absence of your son Jordan, your beloved son Jordan?
Two things I've learned from previous experience, and then learning going through the loss of Jordan. Um, Number one, as we alluded to before, sometimes it's best not to say anything. Sometimes your presence is good enough, like literally, just being there and allowing the person to guide the conversation. Um, and then what I found helpful for my situation and how I help other people when they're going through is I know what my skill set is. And sometimes, well, in most cases, you have a relationship with the person who is grieving. So you know what they like. In most cases, you know their favorite food, you know their favorite drink,
Mm-hmm.
and you have an idea of what's needed because at some form in our or some time in our life, we have all gone through whether it's different layers. We've gone through grief before. Someone in the family has died before, so we know that there's typically a repast. There's typically people congregating at someone's house, and so someone's going to need chicken. Ice is going to be needed. Drinks are going to be needed. Just bring those things if you can. You know, bring some napkins. I remember um, when Jordan passed. Uh, that Sunday we went to Kingdom. We went to church, and there was a lady there, and I feel so horrible. Her name eludes me now. It escapes me now, and had never met her before. So that was Sunday. Tuesday, she's knocking on my door with a case of sodas, 2 pound cakes, um, a bunch of cups, napkins, and it was exactly what I would have done. And she's like, I've gone through a loss. I believe she had lost her son as well. I think it had been a few months prior to Jordan passing. And she just showed up with things, and she didn't say a whole lot. Um, and that was like, wow, you know, um, this is exactly what I would have done. And it's not about the monetary gifts. Like, I understand some people don't have money to give and all of that stuff. And so that's why I said your presence is good enough, and allowing the bereaved to dictate the conversation, or whether or not a conversation is needed at that time. Your presence is good enough. Because the minute you say, if there's anything that I can do for you, let me know, you mean good, but in actuality, now I have to think about, what can I ask Dr. Halstead to do for me? It's
Right.
like, I have to consider your skill set. I have to consider your finances. I have to consider whether or not you have transportation.
Right.
I have to now consider all of these things on top of um, being heartbroken and bereaved. Um, and now, if I ask you and you say, hey, is there anything I can do for you? Let me know. And let's just say it's a situation where, in some cases, finances are needed for the funeral or expenses. And I say to you, oh, it's funny you should ask that. I need $600 because the plot's going to cost X, Y, and Z. And now you come, oh, my rent due. I don't have no money. So now I've just created a awkward situation, a
Yes.
possibly an
For both
embarrassing
of us.
situation for both of us.
Mhm.
But you just said, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know. And so I think the best thing, or a better thing, is to consider your skill sets, consider your resources, and consider the person. Um, um, there were people that know what my favorite foods are, Janelle's favorite foods are, and they just brought them. It wasn't, I didn't have to consider anyone's skill set or resources for certain people. Well, I shouldn't say not anyone, but there were some people I didn't have to consider their skill sets. They knew us, they know us, and so um, they just made themselves available and showed up. Um, and it's that's a little thing, but it's so big. Like, that's
It's a
something
great
that I
thing.
wish.
Mhm.
That's one message I wish I could get to everyone, because I've seen it on both. I've seen it because I've experienced it firsthand, but then I also saw it, when people were bereaved, and everyone, and they mean well, like, hey, I'm sorry for your loss. If there's anything I can do for you, let me know. That's really kind and considerate, and you're saying, hey, I'm available for you, I'm here for
Yeah.
you, but you're not considering, on the other side of that is, I now have to consider you and your resources and skill sets, but all I want to do, or all I'm capable of doing right now, is crying and being, what I mean? And so,
So we want to try and be careful to not give the bereaved more work to do, because that's what you're
yes,
describing. It's like
yes,
another thing on your to-do list at the time when you're most likely not feeling like doing anything.
yes,
So that is something that's it's good, I think, to try and look at practical ways that we can help one another to heal. And to a point that you brought up earlier, how important it is to have a community of some sort, whether
yes,
that's religious and or social and or family and or neighborhood, whatever it is. As human beings, we are built to be with one another. We're social animals by nature, and not that that is that's also not a time that you want to be tasked with entertaining
hmm,
anyone.
hmm,
Okay, so just in terms of grief and loss, and note that grief and loss and trauma is not limited. Grief is not limited to death. But there are other things that can happen. There can be loss of relationships, and in this case, significantly loss of dreams,
Mm.
loss of future plans, loss of ideas and ideals that we held dearly, that helped us to that we held in our lives, that propelled us forward in one way or another. And so just looking at some of the practical things and to just be more sensitive to, and hopefully this will help all of us to change the models that we have previously been married to in the way that we deal, particularly with our spiritual templates or religious institutions, or however you want to frame that discussion, on how it is that we can approach people, approach others in a way that is helpful and, more importantly, that is healing.
Yes.
And so, just to make that connection and to connect those dots as we rethink the impact, the very impact of trauma on our faith, trauma on our spirituality, trauma even on our relationship with another, with one another, and how it is that we can go about at least turning in the direction of healing. It's not that there's anything wrong with some of the things that we do. You spoke last time about even sometimes how we encourage each other to sort of jump over our feelings.
Yes.
I would like to take this moment to encourage each one of us to do those things. If you want to run, run. If you want to dance, dance. If you want to scream, scream. But do that and do the work that you need to do in order to heal. Do that and do the internal work that you need to do in order to heal. That is something that no one else can do for you. Not your doctor, not a pill, not a bottle, not even a ritual can do for you. These things may help you along the way in some way, shape, or form, but if it's a healthy thing, it can help you along the way. But nothing is going to do the work for you, the internal work that only you can do. The same way that your grief is unique to the relationship, and your grief is directly related to the love, so is your healing also uniquely yours. It has a specific path for you, and that code again can be found in the scars. Look at the way that it wounded you, and
Wow.
there I suggest that you will find your healing. Do you have any closing remarks, Judah? Thank you so much for being here again.
Um, you said some great things, especially when you mentioned the individual. I have to do the work. Like that's the one thing that I had to come to an understanding that there was nothing no one could do for me in this situation. And quite naturally, sometimes we our expectations, especially due to either our spiritual relationships that sometimes turn into, as a result of our spiritual relationship with God, and most of us have developed that by going to church, and then you develop social relationships with some of the people that you go to church with, and then understanding that, or having the expectation that, oh well, brother so and so will be there for me if I go through this. And then if brother so and so isn't there, then you feel some type of way, like, darn, I done went through this and he didn't even call me, or she didn't even call me, or I haven't heard anything from the men's ministry, or I haven't heard, you start going through that. But
Phyllis, yes.
right, and who wasn't there for you, and that makes you feel some type of way. But the reality is, um, them not being there doesn't negate my responsibility of doing the work. I still would have to do work, even if you know, everyone from the church called me, or if no one from the church called me, I still would have to do work. And it's important to have the understanding, the desire, and the willingness to do the necessary work to bring about your healing. Fortunately, fortunately, as much as I hate my commute, so I have an hour commute each way to go to work, but that 2 hour space each day allows me to put in work like that. It allows me to listen to certain things. It allows me to reflect. It allows me to cry. It allow um, so that like my wife, I'm blessed that Janelle, she always reminds me that um, there's nothing I can do to bring her down. And so I don't, meaning that I can't hide, I don't have to hide my grief. I don't have to hide my tears. Um, However, I do have it in my mind that um, I don't want to bring anyone down. Like if Janelle, Joy, or Janae are having a good moment at that particular time, laughing and joking, and I'm not in that place due to whatever reason, I'm not just going, oh my God, I had a bad day and I miss him so much in the middle of,
Wet blanket.
right. And so, yeah. So I'm mindful and I'm grateful for the opportunity. As much as I dislike my commute, the time that the alone time that I have to put in the work, whether in the beginning, if that was calling you, I know you and I talked a lot of times in the morning or in the evening, you know what I mean, and on my commute coming back, going back and forth to work, uh, and the same for the other support systems that I've had, and just listening and researching and exploring new ideas, or peeling the onion back on ideas that I thought previously. And but it all goes down to being willing to put in the work, managing your expectations, but still putting in the work. You have to put in. We have to put in the work.
You have to put it in the work. That's very true. Thank you once again, Judah, for your time and your transparency in sharing with everyone from your experience. And for next time, I want to pick up on a theme that we started discussing prior to this time about, because you raised it again in a different way, about the challenge of having external saviors, something being rescued from something that is outside of us, something, someone. So we'll pick it up there next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.